Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Chicanery. We are your hosts. I am Danny, and we have JT.
Hello again, and this time we're going over the 6 hours of Imola.
Yes, so it was, this is a part of kind of I say a series. It's not really; these will all be released separately, but this is a part of kind of a big weekend of motorsports, and well, Imola's yet another on the rather large list. So, a few things to go over. But most crucially of all of these, I guess before we get started and get too deep, is I rather annoyingly like to call it BOP just because it makes everybody angry, but BOP.
Hey, folks, what's going on? It's your favorite Carl from the Victory Lane Vibes crew, taking a little bit of time out of our show here to talk to you about something that's really important. It's the month of May, which only means one thing. You guessed it, it's my birthday. Actually, that's not what I'm here to talk to you about, but keep that in mind. With it being the month of May, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, racing events in North America, heck, even the globe, takes place right in Indianapolis. That's right, I'm talking about the Indianapolis 500 taking place at the end of this month. And so there would be no better way to kick off the month leading up to one of the biggest racing events in North America than with our good friends over at Homefield Apparel. Now, if you don't know who Homefield is, they are a vintage collegiate apparel design company. They've got merchandise for over 80 collegiate sports teams, and this year they've gotten into the world of motorsports. Now, earlier this year they kicked it off with the Hendrick Motorsports collection that's still on their website. Go ahead and check it out. But this month they're launching the Indy 500 collection, and they have some stout pieces. Let me tell you, they launched it last week. I went ahead, I rushed over to the website. I got the 1969 Indy 500 trucker hat, which I had to have, of course, because I'm a trucker. They have all sorts of great pieces, great designs, and great quality. That's one of the best parts about what Homefield does, right? It's not copy and pasted. It's not some, snatched off of Google Images or anything like that. These are authentic and original designs done to the highest of quality. And the best part is they ain't gonna break the bank either. Like sometimes you get this vintage apparel from these places, you're spending $50, $60, $70. At Homefield, you're not gonna break the bank. They got a website and a mobile app you can check out. Now that website is homefieldapparel.com. You can go over there, you can view the Indy 500 collection, you can view the Hendrick Motorsports collection, you can even view all their other designs. It's all very easily laid out for you to see. They got really fast shipping too. Like I said, I just ordered that hat and it's on its way here. And hey, if you find something you like, you can actually use our code VLV24 for 15% off your first order. Again, that code is VLV24, and the website is homefieldapparel.com. They also have a mobile app in the App Store, whether it's Android or iOS. You can go and check them out. And hey, when you get it, tag us at Twitter, VLVPod. We would love to see what you got. Thank you guys so much, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Of which there is a list so extensive that JT, who usually writes the show notes for the sports car related things, had to insert a table, which is fine because I rather like tables and I appreciate it. But lots of numbers, lots of them highlighted in red, so I guess I should probably have a look and go through. Although I'm actually going to need to make the tab bigger so I can actually see what I'm doing. But I guess so. For the big table we've got here is looking at this is the hypercar field, and it looks like there were weight. I know this looks like it's dry weight adjustments. It says minus X amount of kilos, which is weird because my brain says that that's a weight reduction, but it's in red, which makes it.
Yeah, like essentially all the hypercars got a weight reduction except for Peugeot.
Okay, so that is actually how that works. Well, why put it in red when it's a weight reduction? Weight reduction, good, right?
I mean, even in because all the cars I think also got maximum stint energy added. It's plus, and it's also in red text, red numbers as well.
Yeah, it is. It's actually a little confusing to look at if I'm being perfectly honest, but that's fine. We figure this out as we go. Um, but and this is something actually I didn't realize because you've inserted BOP tables for for WEC before, but max power in kilowatts below 210 clicks, which is about 130 miles an hour. I didn't realize that the BOP was quite that granular, if I'm being perfectly honest. Maybe I've just not been paying attention, which I would accept that. But yeah, because it looks like basically everybody got a weight gain, power boost, and an overall maximum stint energy boost. So I guess everybody wins is kind of what I've gathered from this.
Yeah, I think really what it was because Peugeot did their adjustment with their car, adding the new wing on the back of it, and I think like
Yeah.
what they might have done is literally reset everybody to them, I guess. Like they were kind of like the dictator and like the BOP adjustment for this weekend, possibly.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. And then moving on to the GT field.
The BOP for the GT is terrible, or was terrible this weekend, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, because looking through this, weight loss for the Aston Martin, weight increases, although granted pretty nominal. I mean, we're talking single-digit kilos for the Mustang, the 296, the 720S, and the 911.
Lexus and Lambo got a power boost, I think.
Let's see. Yeah, basically, yeah, everybody got a power boost with the exception of the McLaren. Which also rating internal combustion engine, pure internal combustion engine cars, rating their horsepower in megajoules is really stupid. Like, really stupid. But that's besides the point. But yeah, kind of.
I don't know why they use megajoules of all
Yeah,
units to measure it with.
yeah, I don't understand. I can kind of understand with the hypercars being that they're hybridized. Even then, that's still kind of silly, if I'm being perfectly honest. But yeah, on pure internal combustion engine cars with basically zero electrification whatsoever, I don't understand why on earth you wouldn't use megajoules, because that's yet another thing that I'm gonna have to go, because I understand kilowatts to horsepower and PS, CV to brake horsepower, and even the differences between metric horsepower and SAE net. I understand the differences between all of those. I do not understand megajoules to horsepower. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go look some of these up after we finish recording this episode. It's like, what on earth am I looking at? But anyway, looking at tables aside, which I do quite enjoy. Both the Lexus and the Corvettes miss Hyperpole, which again, just pain. Well, not so much for the Lexus, whatever, but for the Corvettes, that's a bummer. And also, it's not super surprising. I mean, we've talked about it before. Everything that the Lexus are in IMSA, they just aren't in WEC. It's kind of wild. Just how, frankly, just how slow the Lexus is in WEC. And then the Corvette's just kind of slow everywhere, so this is really par for the course. But it was the number 92 Montai Pure Racing Porsche that claimed Hyperpole. Cadillac, Peugeot, and Alpine struggled mightily during qualifying. They were, pretty slow. And then I say that the number 15 BMW went for a bit of a spin, which was resulted in the first half of the hypercar qualifying being red flagged, which it was not allowed to rejoin the session because it caused the red flag, which is very funny, but a rule that I actually kind of like. Okay, you bring out the red flag, yeah, you're done.
Yeah, they had a bit of a rough weekend. But I will say I don't necessarily know if I agree with them bringing out a red flag for the car spinning because they did spin, but they did kind of like a little spin, but it got back straight and kept going. So I'm like, okay, the car kept going. It didn't get stuck. And I guess like they did end up bringing a little bit of gravel onto like the circuit where like kind of the racing line was. And maybe that was what they were concerned about because they did red flag during the red flag period. I did see that they did have some marshals come out and sweep up the gravel. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, now y'all are worried about gravel on the circuit when at Qatar, you literally let a whole thing of gravel just like sit there on the circuit the entire race, did nothing about it. And people were going offline. They were going off into the gravel and kept bringing more back on, and they still did nothing about it. So I'm like, okay, now the gravel's a problem. And there was arguably a fuck ton more of gravel that was on the circuit at Qatar than there was here for one singular ass car spinning out and bringing a little bit of it back on. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't understand. I really don't think it needed a red at all. Sure, maybe like a local yellow or something, but not a whole red. And then at the end, there was only like a minute and 57 seconds left in the session, too. So it's like, I don't know. It's just kind of silly.
Yeah, I watched, I was able to find a rebroadcast of it after the fact. Watching these things live, especially this weekend with the broad raft of things has been a little challenging, but yeah, but I did get the opportunity to catch it live, and it did very much feel like a superfluous red flag. I mean, yes, props for cleaning it up, but yes, where was this energy at Qatar when you had basically an entire playground worth of gravel on the circuit at one point? Um, but well, I guess they figured it out eventually, and we're all supposed to clap. But anyway, that's completely besides the point. At any rate, more hypercar hyperpole drama. The factory Porsches didn't have a great time. Matt Campbell locked up and ended up in the gravel. Funny how these discussions come full circle. Brendan Hartley and Kamui Kobayashi had some locking up issues. And all of this resulted in the Ferraris taking a front row lockout at Imola, which, well, I guess that's they and Lamborghini's home track for all intents and purposes. Um, but as for the customary question as we get into the race, and that is always, was it a good race or not? I'll throw it to you first, and then I'll kind of pick up.
I'll say yes, it was a good race. I mean, honestly, I thought it was better than Monza. Honestly, I mean, people may not agree with that because I know, like, the big question I saw, like, people going out today was like, oh, should WEC stay at uh, Imola or should they go back to Monza? And some people were like, no, they should go to Mugello. And I'm like, honestly, I just say, you know what? Like, fuck Monza and fuck Mugello to just stay at Imola. Like, the racing was actually pretty good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. So personally, I would just say stay at this track. I mean, maybe I wouldn't be too opposed to like alternating between, you know, the 2 or 3 circuits, but personally, I'm very partial to Imola.
Yeah, that's fair. I enjoyed this race. I thought it was fun. No, it's hilarious because I really, really out of all of the sort of Italian sports car tracks, I actually really like Mugello. It has been probably I'd say a top 10 probably favorite track actually ever since I was a kid. And like running it in, I guess it would have been Forza 2. I was like, oh, Mugello's a fun track, and I've just really enjoyed it ever since. But yeah, so I mean, alternating it wouldn't be horrible. But honestly, Imola has traditionally always produced some pretty darn good racing. I enjoyed this. And certainly if, the powers that be just said, no, Imola best friend now, I wouldn't be all that bothered by that. Um, so so yeah, no, I thought this was a fun race. Um, Now, it was chaotic as anything at the start. One of the Alpines, the number 36, both Peugeots, the number 15 BMW. You know, that joke you always make about, being at the scene of the crime. That was very much that car this weekend. And the number 91 Mantai Porsche were all involved in a bit of beating and banging. And then it started raining. um, and lots of cars were off after the rain started and dampened a few parts of the circuit. In fact, actually, the Asada Fraschini ended up in the barriers as a direct result of which the Iron Dames Lamborghini retired due to electrical issues. And there's really epitomizing the, if they didn't have bad luck, they would have absolutely no luck at all. It drives me nuts how allergic that car is to a decent finish. But we did get a good scrap between the WRT BMW GT3s, which was fun. But now it's the time to point and laugh because the AF Corsa Ferrari went full hunts for this race, and it is just glorious. This is like some Ferrari F1 strategy that they pulled off here.
I mean, maybe that's what happened. They brought in the Ferrari F1 strategist for the weekend, and that's why everything just went completely wrong. I mean, I was just like, I couldn't believe just how much they just absolutely bottled this race. Like, it was just like a generational bottle. Like, they really bungled it. Like, I was just like, I can't believe it.
Yeah, it is not good. So
At their
initially,
home race too, which is
yes,
what makes it even more embarrassing. Like, I had secondhand embarrassment for them.
yeah, it's a mild miracle that any Tifosi on site, they just didn't burn the circuit down. But yes, so initially started on slicks. Then it started to rain a bit. So needless to say, slicks and moisture don't mix. But then they decided to bail and go to wet, which you think, okay, fine. However, it was entirely too late to do so. They had already lost stacks of position, and then the circuit really wasn't wet enough for wets. And as a result, they basically handed over the race on a silver platter to the Toyotas, which is
Yeah,
just like,
and honestly, like it was so funny too because like even the commentator Martin Haven, he was like super upset at how badly this had gone for Ferrari. And really the problem was that honestly they should have just stuck with the slicks in the first place and committed to that because I mean technically it did rain and there were some parts of the circuit that were more damp than others. However, it did dry pretty quickly and they ended up losing. Like, sure, they were actually losing a lot of time staying on the slicks, but again, they ended up losing even more time, like bailing out on their strategy and not committing by, pitting all three of their cars and throwing on the wet tires at the last fucking second. So it's like, honestly, at that point, you would have been better off just sticking it out. Personally, is what they should have done, in my opinion.
I completely agree. It would have been better to just tough it out on slicks until the circuit dried up enough. Because, yeah, this kind of wishy-washy bailing in the middle to switch to wets, they just lost heaps upon heaps of time. You know what? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the F1 strategists, maybe they all got fired and went to the hypercar program. Because to be fair, they did a pretty good job at the Chinese Grand Prix having Leclerc one stop. He qualified P6, finished P4. So
Or maybe it's a case of how I always make the joke of a lot of racing teams that are splitting series, is that they're only capable of being good in one series at a time. If they happen to be racing in multiple series on the same weekend, it's like either they can't both be good. Either one's gonna be excel in one racing series, and then the other racing series that they're in, they're gonna completely bosh at everything.
yeah, it's like the sharing the one brain cell meme.
Yeah, so this weekend the Ferrari F1 team had the brain cell.
Oh my gosh. But yes, yeah, no, the AF course of the idea is just it is genuinely some horrendous strategy. It's possibly some of the worst that I have seen in hypercar in a while. But at any rate, good battle between the number 20 BMW and the number 8 Toyota. Um,
I was so certain the 20 was going to get a podium.
I thought
I
so too.
mean, I was like, yeah, the BMW podium is happening. It's going to happen in this race. I was so certain. And Lord and behold, didn't happen. I mean, you know what? Honestly, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put on the metaphorical clown makeup because, they ended up getting a penalty later on, which completely killed their race. The race was in the casket after that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Then the number 15 BMW, which are we sensing a theme here? Anytime there's something interesting going on, it's like that. It's
The
it was
meme where it's like, why is it every time something happens, it's always U3? But
yes,
instead, it's not U3, it's just BMW.
I was just about to say that. Yes, that's exactly it. But yes, in this case, it's just the number 15 BMW, which had yet another off, and then just decided to bugger off to the garage. Think was officially scored. Well, was officially scored P18 for the moment. We'll get to that. Then the Proton Porsche had multiple offs, and which eventually led it to getting stranded and causing a full course yellow. The car was then retired shortly thereafter. Yeah, the number 20 got a penalty, which um, ruined their race. But they had genuine pace, much like you said before. They were quick, but ended up P6 as a result of this. One of the Corvettes got a penalty. The number 6 Porsche Penske got a penalty, which is 5 seconds added on to the next pit stop, which is interesting. Then there was, then the Toyota was able to pull off the Porsche and get the win overall. And then the number 31 BMW took LMGT3 honors. But as for the number 15 BMW, yet again, I promise that we're done after this. Yeah, that weekend went worse. Basically, the car didn't go to Parc Fermé under its own power, and
It's
that
funny
was
enough, that was actually the same post-race penalty that disqualified the Peugeot in Qatar.
Yep, I was just about to say that. Yes, it was a post-race infringement, and yes, is the exact same penalty that the Peugeot had. And the same result, a DQ. So at least they're consistent, which makes me feel a little bit better as the
I
resident
mean,
Peugeot
you
fan.
can't help but feel bad for the number 15 BMW. I mean, they got like the prison type ass whooping this weekend. Like it was just bad thing after bad thing after bad thing. It's like they got like beat up, they got jumped, they got punched, they got kicked, they got shanked. I mean, and then they got kicked while they were already down, while
Yeah,
they already had went off the circuit several times, got stuck in the gravel. It got freaking removed from the qualifying session because they caused a red flag. I mean, they were just having a miserable time.
yeah, no, they had kind of a rough go of it this weekend, and I feel kind of bad for them. But well, it's the way that it goes sometimes. Um, but as for the other teams that didn't have a rough go, this is quite possibly always my favorite segment of the sports car weekends, the endurance racing weekends. It's the struggle bus and lost at sea teams. Uh, Although I say that, I don't know why it's my favorite because it's always the cars that I like that end up on this list. But at any rate, to open it, the Cadillac, the first one on the bloody list. To be fair, they actually weren't. They were reasonably quick. No thanks to one Mr. Earl Bamber in the damp conditions, but otherwise weren't particularly quick throughout the race. As mentioned, the number 15 BMW, it was just an absolutely torrid weekend, and where
Yeah, this is the
nothing went
last
right.
time we'll mention them. Like, we
Yes.
promise this is the last time. We're not gonna keep ragging on them while they're completely suffering.
Mm-hmm. Um, but yeah, no, they didn't have a great time. The Akotis Lexus, which, like I said, basically the WEC Lotus outfit or Lexus. I don't know why I said Lotus. Um, Amira GT3 win. I don't know, but at any rate, yeah, the Akotis, the Lexus team, um, it's not a great outfit relative to the Vassar Sullivan ones that run here in IMSA. Use like that meme of the pit and then the Chihuahua. The Coda's team is very much the latter. But they did both finish the race this time. It wasn't quite the horror show that it's been the last couple rounds where one or both cars DNF. Uh, Peugeot, even despite adding the wing, they still suck. So I'm not quite sure what that's about.
I mean, to be fair, some of their struggle, I'm going to attribute to the fact that I think both cars were involved in that little lap one, turn one
Yeah, that is
melee,
a good
and
point.
that severely ended up hemorrhaging their race later on because they did get pretty badly. They were involved in that little skirmish and did get pretty badly banged up after that. So I'm gonna say that like it might have been that was the problem with them this weekend, and because of that, you really didn't get to see like their true race pace or how well they actually could have done had that not have happened. So I'll be a little bit more lenient with them and say that that part of this was unfortunately due to circumstances that were out of their control.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that I'm gonna be really upset if they added that wing and the car still sucks. But yes, you are
I mean, if
right.
that ends up being the case, I'll take back everything I said. But
Yeah, I do agree that it is probably not this weekend, though. At least the race weekend, anyway, was likely not indicative of true pace. And at any rate, this is the first race weekend with the wing, anyway. So in theory, they're only going to get faster, regardless, as we go forward. So we'll see. I really hope I'm right because I adore the Wingless Wonder. I still like the car even with the wing, but I'll be upset if they removed the car's USP, primary USP being no wing, and then it's still no good. And then Asada for Skinny, not really super surprising. Not super quick in quali, had kind of a rough time in the race. I mean, it's a fledgling hypercar outfit. I mean, better, they still easily clear like Van Wall and Glickenhaus. Like, let me be totally clear about that. But otherwise, yeah, it's just in some ways it's funny. I guess you can kind of tell me what you think, but this reminds me to some extent of when like back in the 90s where you had like all of these, chancer like F1 teams like in the mid 90s, particularly from like 90 to about 95, 96, basically before the 107% rule was enacted. Um, where you had all these teams where like, hell yeah, I'll build a car and kind of see what happens. This current era in kind of top flight sports car racing, particularly in Europe, kind of reminds me of that. Where you've got these teams like, Van Wall, like Asada Fraschini, and to some extent, frankly, even Glickenhaus, where, truth be told, they don't really feel super prepared, but boy, they're going to give it a damn good try regardless.
I mean, I admire their courage to do it, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was just, like I said, kind of a funny thing that popped in my head. Sort of running through the list of the, particularly the single car operations that aren't, an OE. Um, but I guess a few other little things, miscellaneous things. Uh, their Formula E and WEC clashed, which it's like, how? They're both FIA run series. How did
That's
Who?
what I was gonna say because I'm like, I feel maybe it's just like I couldn't figure out if it's just me being naive or something, but I'm like, I feel like that if both of these series are because they're run by the same sanctioning body, that there should be a little bit more like, I don't know, collaboration or talk about maybe making the dates of some of these races not clash. I mean, I'm like, did nobody sit down at like a big table or nothing and be like, yeah, here's going to be the schedules. Like, I mean, especially since you have so many drivers that are like in both of these series. Like, I mean, WEC and Formula E are like effectively sharing like a driver pool. Like, a lot of them are splitting and doing both at the same time, so it makes the clash even more silly. And then what really had me just like what really just blew me was the fact that you have so like there are a lot of drivers. I'm like, okay, I think really what it's like, it's Formula E clashing with, I think, Spa. I think it's the Berlin E Prix is clashing with the 6 hours of Spa for WEC. You have uh Kelvin Vanderlyn filling in for, I think it's Nico Mueller at Abt, which I'm like, both of these drivers are in WEC. So it's like you have a dude who's leaving WEC to fill in for a dude in Formula E because that same dude who's also in WEC is missing Formula E for WEC. It's like this is like there was no better way to have to work this out. Like that is just so silly to me.
Yeah, it is. It's just very dumb. And like I said, like you said, maybe this is a bit of naivety on our parts, but you know, I don't know. It's 2024. I don't know if anybody does the ginormous conference table anymore, but I don't know, a Zoom meeting where somebody's like, okay, this is our schedule. Somebody from Formula E, and then the WEC side of the FIA is like, okay, well, this is our schedule, and then it's like, okay, do we have anything that clashes? Because yes, like you said, certainly between Formula E and WEC, it's basically the same driver pool, practically. And so lots of back and forth. And I know this is, like you said, this has created some scheduling conflicts for some of these teams and these drivers, about basically committing to events already. And they're like, okay, well, we need backups and, just so on and so forth, for one or the other. And it just seems like one hell of an oversight uh, to not get this sorted out. I don't quite know what the lesson here is, if there is one to be learned at all.
I don't know,
But
more coordination or something, communication, something. I don't know because whatever, like this is not working because I just think the whole thing is just so incredibly silly to me. I'm like, bro, you have, I mean, and then I don't know, some of it's also like, I don't know, I guess like some teams are also like, because there was also a little bit a while back, there was like an article that came out that I remember I was reading through it a little bit where it was like some like there was a lot of drama between like a lot of Formula E teams and like how they were, managing some of the conflicts because a lot of them did have drivers that do race in both Formula E and WEC, and like a lot of them I think were not allowing some of them to race in WEC, like kind of telling them that like they have to commit to like Formula E or something like that. I know that was the case for one team. I can't remember off the top of my head. And there was actually like, I think they also did like some type of like vote or whatever. And apparently, even some teams that didn't have any drivers in WEC at all were like basically voting down and saying that no, they should like commit or something like that. And there was also, I think, some drama between Antonio DaCosta or whoever it was and like Porsche because there was I think it was about like the same thing. And I'm like, I don't know. I get like there is some like nuances and intricacies here, but I'm like, I feel like there's gotta be a better way than this.
yeah, because this is getting just very, very messy. That's probably the biggest thing out of all of this is that as a result of the scheduling conflicts, then yes, teams are trying to hold on to drivers and what have you and have them commit. Um, but yeah, it makes us messy and it makes the teams angry, it makes the drivers angry. Basically, just nobody's happy. And I realize to some extent, well, not to some extent, these are businesses, as much as we see them as, amusing little follies where, folks with entirely too much money and just take very expensive cars around in circles. Um, they are functioning businesses, and and ergo, some amount of stability and kind of locking down of drivers teams and what have you may be seen as kind of a necessary evil, but yeah, but certainly as from a fan perspective, it's just like holy crap, what on earth is going on here? So I don't know. I think this year will certainly be a good lesson for kind of everybody involved, and maybe 2025 we'll see a bit more uh, uh, increased calm, for want of a better phrase, on that front. But
I mean,
well,
I doubt it because the FIA runs both of these fucking series. So I
that's a
mean,
good point.
they don't seem like they're inclined to change anything because they're stuck in their ways. So at this point, it is what it is. I mean, you know what? I mean, hell, I kind of maybe I'll actually make an effort to watch Formula E that weekend because it seems like it's just going to be reserve drivers. It's like, yeah, fuck it. I'd like to see a race with nothing but reserve drivers.
Actually, that sounds wonderfully chaotic. Yeah, okay, I'm in. I like it. uh, Still upset about how Formula E massacred my boy, but that's a discussion for a different day. Um, but at any rate, some chatter on the front of Cadillac's WEC operation, because I'm pretty sure we hit on this topic in the last WEC sort of race roundup. But the long and short is that Cadillac and well, actually, more accurately, Chip Ganassi Racing is buggering off. It seems like they and GM, mom and dad are getting divorced, basically. And it seems like a Team Yoda is currently being mooted as the folks who are going to take over Cadillac's WEC operation, which is sure, I guess. Um, I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. I mean, I guess it couldn't hurt. It's worth noting that the Cadillac's not been fabulous in WEC anyway, so surely these guys can't really be any worse. Yeah, I don't really quite know how to feel about that, if I'm being completely honest.
I mean, honestly, I feel like hopefully I'm leaning towards it's a good thing because I think the main reason why Cadillac CGR has not been doing that well in WEC is because we have mentioned this before. They are probably stretching themselves a little bit too thin, and that is the reason for why they have not been that successful. So hopefully, with Yoda taking over the operations, it'll be a little bit. They will have more facilities than CGR has, and we'll be able to actually put that to use and perform better than Cadillac currently has been doing in the series. And hopefully, they'll also have more factory support as well.
Yeah, that would certainly that would be nice. I would not be upset if that's the way that ends up going, but yeah, I guess we'll have to. Well, I mean, first of all, just wait and see if this is confirmed. It would certainly be a shame to have the Cadillac drop out of WEC. But like we also talked about with that stupid mandate for minimum 2 cars, it's like who knows? Cadillac may decide to wash their hands of this whole thing entirely. But I guess we will just have to. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But with that, that sort of wraps up the Imola happenings from WEC this past weekend. So, with that, thank you so much for listening. We are your hosts, Danny and JT, and this has been another episode of Chicanery. Until next time, folks.